Welcome to Procurement Evolved, WNS Procurement's new video forum examining the latest industry trends, challenges, and insights. Join us as we pick the brains of leading procurement and supply chain executives as we figure out what gets them out of bed in the morning and what keeps them up at night. I'm Omer Abdullah, co-founder of the Smart Cube, and in today's inaugural episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Ruji Mahmud of GE Healthcare. We touched on a whole range of topics, and it was a fascinating conversation. And we touched on a host of issues strategic to procurement. And of course, we talked about AI, digital, and enabling technologies. So without any further delay, let's dive right into the conversation. Today, I'm pleased to welcome Ruji Mahmud, who is the head of Procurement Strategy, Transformation, and Operations at GE Healthcare. Welcome, Ruji.
Thank you very much. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you, and I'm excited for the conversation. There's a number of topics that I want to pick up on that I'm really eager to hear your perspectives on. But before we dive into the actual substance and content itself, can we start off with a little bit of an introduction? Maybe if you could give us a little bit of a career history for yourself.
Sure. So actually, I started my career in finance, and I was headhunted by procurement. They were looking for somebody with a finance background to help with a few issues in AP. And I just thought it was time to move into a function that I felt was far more dynamic. And I really liked the fact that procurement was just beyond numbers. There was a lot happening at that time in the market. So I made the jump into procurement, and fast forward 15 years, here I am in procurement. I've worked in a number of life science companies, and right the way from category management roles for direct materials, indirect materials, all the way to more transformational positions focusing more on procurement excellence, things like sustainability and digitalization. So it's been a very, very fulfilling procurement career so far.
And you've clearly hit all the hot buttons in terms of what we're grappling with within procurement. Transformation, sustainability, digitalization, all of these aspects have been big hot buttons. Now, if you could talk a little bit about now GE Healthcare, you're the head of Procurement Strategy, Transformation, and Operations. That's a lot in there. Maybe if you could talk a little bit about that role and what that involves.
Yeah. What does that mean? So we at GE Healthcare, we spun off from GE over a year ago, and really we're developing new strategies and new models on how we move forward as a business. And so for that, we also need to focus on, as a function, what is the fit for future function, and that in terms of processes, technologies, people, and the culture itself as well. So in my role, I've been at GE almost coming up to a year. And the first part was really doing a diagnostics of what we have in place in all of those areas: process, people, technology. And then building on that. So where do we want to go as a business? Which markets do we want to grow in? What products do we want to grow? Who are we competing with? And then doing that gap analysis and bridging that with all of the transformation programs that we will need. And it's a combination of quick fixes, long-term implementations. And so it's very exciting, it's very dynamic, and lots to keep us busy.
Yeah. Oh, look, that sounds like a dream role, to be able to come in and start right at the sort of seed of the idea, if you will, and then be able to build that out and see where to take an organization. And I'm eager to jump in and talk about a number of things. So maybe let's do this. The way I'd like to structure the conversation today is in three broad parts. Let's talk about transformation as a whole. And I've got a few questions around that and how you think about that and how you're actioning that at GE Healthcare. Let's talk, of course, about technologies. I mean, the procurement community has been just a buzz, if you will, over the last at least 5 to 10 years with all sorts of procure tech out there. Let's talk a little bit about that in terms of how you think about that and how you're sort of working on that. And then the third thing I'd like to cover off before we conclude is an issue that I think is really unfortunately ends up getting sorely overlooked, which is the whole skills and talent aspect, and how that fits in. We get excited about tech, but how does that actually work from a talent perspective? And so let's dive into that a little bit, and then we can wrap up with some concluding thoughts. But the first aspect is this idea of procurement transformation and the opportunity that you're grappling with yourself. Now, when you think about procurement transformation, what does that mean for you, just conceptually in general, and then in the context of the role that you currently have? How do you think about procurement transformation?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in my role, procurement transformation, what it essentially means is to strategically revamp processes that we have today to align with the business needs. So I align with procurement strategies with the overall business agenda by integrating goals for mutual success. And procurement helps future-proof the business by embracing innovations, nurturing supplier relationships, and focusing on value creation.
Now, and I think that makes a lot of sense. One of the interesting things that you just said there was aligning with business needs. What's the process that you went through
Right.
to do that? I mean, I think we think about procurement strategies certainly within our own functions and departments and categories, and you can take it down to whatever level. But clearly, none of that resonates or delivers value unless you're coordinating with the overall goals and needs of the business. How do you sort of think about that, and how did you approach that within the GE Healthcare context, and in order to make it such that the strategy actually made sense and was workable? How did you approach that?
Yeah. And actually here, lean methodologies can really help. And for those companies who are not focusing so heavily on lean, you don't have to go so deep into it. And what it really means is at the beginning of the year, what we're doing is looking at what is the overall direction. So the longer term goal, 5-year, 10-year goal, that direction that the business is going into, and then what that means in terms of the 1-year, 2-year horizon. Once we've identified that, and that is around our products, product mix, the markets we're entering into, the technologies, the new product innovation, and that then tells us how to organize ourselves in terms of our buy versus make strategy. And then that with procurement goals, we can then align what are our objectives for this year. How do those they help deliver the current demand of the business, so what we're already manufacturing and we're producing and delivering, but also how do we already start preparing ourselves with existing suppliers and partners, or even new suppliers and partners for the future demand. And that future demand might be additional capacity requirements, or it might be even new technology. And that's where really simple sort of that top-down alignment for the goals and objectives really help. And I mean, there's various different types of lean methodologies you can use, Hoshinkanri being one, for example. And then we check it on a regular basis. Now, we are very lean focused here. So we have daily management system, and we check it on a weekly basis in terms of site level, functional level, and then overall organizational and business direction level. However, I've worked in other companies where you check it on a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly basis, and that alignment can still be that much strong. It's just ensuring, that collaboration and that clarity of direction and going there together is absolutely there.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So two things let me draw from that, right? So the first part is there's clearly a lot of communication. So I would imagine as you sort of look at the team that you have within procurement and the team that you're sort of peers within the procurement function, and then how you work with others in the organization, relationship management, communication skills, collaboration capabilities. I mean, that's fundamental, it sounds like, right? To be able to
Absolutely.
That's the first piece.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, those cross-functional teams, we have our clear roles and our teams, but it almost feels like we work in a matrix organization
Yeah.
because the cross-functional team atmosphere is so strong.
Yeah, yeah. So that's foundational. And then the other aspect, which I really liked, is the consistent, structured follow up that you've got to make sure that everything is continuing to be aligned and that we're pursuing the goals that we set out to be. And that's quite interesting, right? I mean, that's sort of that's like a project management capability, if you will. I don't want to oversimplify that point, but it's being able to do that in a really structured but rigorous way to keep that up. So in other words, we're going to talk up front, we're going to understand the goals, we're going to translate them, and then we're going to have regular checkpoints to make sure that we continue to keep after the goals. Is that fair?
Absolutely, absolutely. That discipline has to be there. The execution is not just, once you've designed it and you've got the agreement and sign off, you implement it and that's it. It's the living of it.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes that can be seen as governance or project management indeed, but for us it's a way of working. And so that's why we have the daily management system to really make sure that we keep on top of it and everything. And any potential, any possibilities of us going off course, any risk is identified right at the root so that we have plenty of time and opportunity to course correct.
Yeah. So build it into the workflow as opposed to thinking of it. I like that where you made a distinction between governance and project management. This is sort of built into the workflow as opposed to, oh, I've got a meeting coming up in a month or in 3 weeks. I got to prepare for that. No, this is part of my daily activity to make sure
Absolutely.
we're on track. And that makes a lot of sense. Now, as you look at that translation of, driving value and becoming a key value creator, how do you sort of think about that? How can procurement help future-proof businesses? How can it help become that value creator for the businesses? How do you sort of mentally grapple with that point?
Yeah, I think where procurement can really help is by creating more options for the business, and that's through our third-party relationships. And now it's actually a lot more simpler than it was when I first started my journey in procurement, and that's by leveraging innovative technologies. Via technologies, we can scout the supplier market wider than what we today are contracting and we're aware of. And so we can identify suppliers with different pricing models, with different value propositions, with different technologies and solutions, and also identify suppliers who are collaborating with a group of other suppliers to provide us a much more tailored solution. So I think it's the, bringing that piece to the table to our stakeholders, that there is a different option, there's a different way we can do this, whether we're producing it in-house or externally, and we can help provide answers to problems that we're tackling within the business sooner and much earlier on in our pipeline than when it comes to actually procuring the material. So decisions can be made much sooner and with a lot more data behind it.
Yeah. So that's actually a perfect segue to the next broad topic, which is around enabling technologies and all that's out there. Can you share maybe some lessons learned that you've had from implementing enabling technologies within procurement processes, either at GE Healthcare or in your past experience as well? How do you think about what drives that?
Yeah. I think actually three key lessons. One is there's a fine line between sort of implementing a pilot and then scaling out versus going big, because it's difficult, right? When you're requesting for a budget, and if you do get budget for a pilot project, you're not able to show the results on a large scale. It's quite incremental, and then getting the sign off to scale that out does become difficult. So sometimes it's better to just go big, roll it out. And I think that's case by case. So that was one of my lessons learned. I think the other one is prioritizing data quality. If your data foundation is not correct, data is not clean, data is not structured,
Yeah.
the taxonomy, even the roles and responsibilities of the different operators, that's not clear, you don't have the RACI in place, then it doesn't matter what technology you implement, it's not going to be successful because it's only going to be drawing on incorrect data and unorganized data. And as we're going more and more towards AI utilization, that will not be possible either because of the data quality. So data first, technology second is definitely one. I think the other one is the capabilities of people. And so I would say to do a skills-based analysis and then do targeted trainings. Unfortunately, one of the difficulties we have is as budgets get tight, that's one of the areas we tend to remove budgets from. But it's detrimental to any technology project that you're working on because the tool is just as good as the user. So we need to make sure that we do invest in training, and that's for our procurement colleagues, it's for our stakeholders, it's for our suppliers, anyone who's a user. We need to ensure that we invest in that training and we encourage collaboration so that they do utilize that and work with each other, and the clear communication around it, that this is the technology that we're moving forward, the rationale behind it, and really that change management to take people along with you.
Yeah, I like all 3 points, make a lot of sense. I like the first point especially. It's kind of provocative in a way, right? Which is to say, we tend to think pilot, risk aversion, risk mitigation, test it, don't spend a lot of money. But what you're saying is in some instances, you got to pick and choose. And some of them just go for the big bang and implement it. You're right, because the pilot will just show incremental value and ultimately you don't get the business case to do what you need to do. Now, of course, lots of diligence needed there, but an interesting point there. Data first, you'll get no argument from me on that. I mean, absolutely, data quality is paramount. And if we don't have that, we really can't go anywhere. And then the people piece is great. We're going to get into the people piece in much more detail in a second. But on that point, I agree with you. I think the skills inventory is an important thing to do. The training, look, I think it's no surprise that, when we have tight times and budgets are tight, unfortunately, training seems to be the first thing that gets cut. When, probably it's the last thing that has to get cut because that's when you need that education, the transformative capability of people all the more. But I think those are absolutely relevant points. On that piece of it, as we're seeing this evolution, and I don't think the procurement tech landscape is going to slow down anytime soon. I think if anything, it's only going to accelerate because of all the opportunity that's there. How do you ensure that your team stays agile in adopting and adapting these new technologies? And the thing that I sort of think about in this is, I like this phrase, digital fatigue, right? People get tired. There's a lot of tech. There's a lot of new things getting implemented. How do you sort of think about that? How do you ensure that your folks are remaining agile and being able to take advantage of the technologies that are brought in?
Yeah. Well, at least we, and having learnt, I think, from a lot of case studies that you read and hear about externally, what we've taken away is to shelter and protect the team. And what I mean by that is we have a core team that are focusing on the technologies, and it's a cross-functional team, and we're being very selective about which technologies we're going to go with, and we're really looking at it end to end. And so it's all about assessing what is the maturity of my organization today, in terms of my current processes, my current technology landscape, and that gives me a profile of the people within the function or the users. Where are they in terms of implementing a new technology, and are they going to adopt it? What is the kind of support they will need? Because what we don't want to do is plug and play with a whole bunch of tools because it's exciting, and and that's great. I think for some organizations that works, but for us specifically, what we thought is, and again, lean mindset, we want to focus on the tools that will help us specifically with our problems today, and so people understand them and they will adopt them. They'll be open to them, they'll be curious about them, and at the end of the day, any technology, the ROI is really measured around utilization. And so what I don't want to do is overwhelm the team with too many versions of the same technology. It's more around what is that tech stack going to be, and what are those specific tools we're going to use, and how do they interact and complement each other, so that the team, as you said, you don't feel overwhelmed by too many solutions and too many different types of solutions. It's all about understanding the user landscape, and getting them to adopt it and use it.
Yeah, 100%. Be selective in terms of the tech that you're looking at, and then look. I like the phrase you use: look end to end from an implementation perspective. In other words, it's not just the tech implementation itself, but it's the people using it and what they need to do to be ready to be able to drive that value as well. Which I think you're right. I think it's easy to get carried away by the glitz and glamour of having a shiny new tool. Let's just be thoughtful about what we're using. And like you said, utilization, that's the main metric that we need to have. So you talked a lot about what your team needs to do to be able to take advantage of the technology. What would be your ask of a tech solution provider when working with organizations that are driving procurement transformation like yours? Like, what would you say to them? Hey, here's what I need from you to help me and folks like yourselves.
Yeah, they need to be part of the team. They really need to be part of the team, and not sales people. And so for me, and for us actually, how we've selected those partners is really based on, do they understand where we are in our journey? Do they understand our aspirations? Do they understand the pace that we will go at? Are they listening? Are they willing to take time with us? But also, in building those foundations, they get us ready for when we need to leap, we can leap, knowing that we have that extended team there who understand the technology, who understand that landscape, and they also understand where we are going as a team and as an organization. And so they bring those future technology solutions to us in time, but again at the pace that our organization needs to go at. So for me, that's the key part, that they are part of the team, and they are able to help us navigate those tools and explain them so that they are user friendly, and they prioritize the solutions that enhance our efficiency to help us get those data driven decision making.
Yeah. So don't pitch me a product, but be part of the team. Help me understand my business and understand how your product actually drives value within the business itself, and that requires a content-based understanding of what it is you do. I think that's great advice. On this topic of team, let's segue to the third topic, which is this whole idea of kind of the procurement skills inventory and gap, and kind of where it is today versus tomorrow. In your view and in your experience, and particularly in light of what's happened in the last 5 to 10 years within procurement, what are the key skills that you think procurement professionals need today? Earlier we talked a little bit about relationship management and collaboration and comm skills, but what do you see is required today, and how is this evolving, if you will, given this AI and generative AI and technology landscape that's there? What do you see as kind of the prime areas that are important?
Yeah, so I guess then, as we discussed those sort of foundational, traditional procurement skill sets, the future procurement practitioner will I guess, possess a blend of technical skills like AI literacy and data analysis. But alongside that, we'll also have essential soft skills such as communication and negotiation. But also, that agility and creativity and problem solving abilities, that they are absolutely paramount in this evolving technological landscape. And then the cross-functional collaboration and understanding broader business objectives beyond the traditional procurement functions, they're absolutely key.
And okay, so I 100% agree. That's that's quite a different profile today versus maybe 10 to 15 years ago, certainly
Correct.
versus 20 to 30 years ago. Completely transformed. I mean, I don't think that's an overstatement to say that's a transformed role profile. I think it's also fair to say that a lot of organizations today aren't there, right?
Mm.
They have people with all the best of intentions, but they're just not there. What advice do you have for those organizations looking to bridge that skills gap?
Yeah, and I've been fortunate in I've had quite a few transformation roles, so I've seen that, and this is an area that I've worked on in different organizations. And I would say, I mean, the first step is identify the gap. So do your capability assessment and that diagnostics piece. And then invest in targeted training programs on AI technologies. This is essential to upskilling your employees. Foster a culture of innovation and experimentation because it encourages that adoption of new ways of working. And I think the other thing is think about your organization structure and your team mix. You don't always have to have all the experts in your team. You can, as I said, those technology providers, see them as your extended team as well. So lean on them. Also think about, a blended mix between bringing in people at certain times, perhaps interim staff, but also just the mix of the team. You don't need somebody who's been a procurement practitioner for X many years. A lot of graduates are coming in with a lot of capabilities and technology skill sets. So again, think about that team mix and what that can look like in terms of internal, external, new hires, and also a difference between those with procurement experience and those without procurement experience, because they'll bring challenges and hold your organization sort of, they'll hold the organization to look at what else can be done.
Yeah, question kind of the conventional way of doing things, if you will. Yeah, I like that point around the profile. I think you're right. I think we have a tendency to say, oh, such and such person has been doing this for decades, it must be the right person. But often you need that fresh perspective. Somebody maybe doesn't have that history, and dare I use the term baggage sometimes, and just forces you to rethink how things are done. I think that's great. So I think that's a great point. Rethink the role profiles, rethink where you're getting it from. In other words, internally versus externally. Clearly, lean on your supplier base to bring in their know-how and knowledge, which makes perfect sense to drive that. On an ongoing basis, though, you do need to foster this sort of. You mentioned a culture of innovation. Ongoing learning, ongoing development. How do you sort of think about those aspects? And are there things that you're doing to really ensure that that's in place?
Yeah, so we are really looking at this culture of continuous learning within procurement and outside of procurement, and it involves providing career development opportunities, and so really building that in and having those questions early on, right from setting your objectives to that end of year conversation of what's next, reflections on what projects you enjoyed and what you'd like to challenge yourself with, and building it into there. Also, we do a lot around recognizing employee contributions to encourage those who are doing something different, so that it does encourage the rest of the organization to also think about that, sort of think out of the box. And also we, I think offering flexibility in working arrangements, that is also helping a lot, because people are feeling much more creative in different environments. And again, that flexibility allows them to do their best work when it suits them, and creating an environment really that promotes open communication and collaboration, that is essential to that ongoing continuous improvement and learning mindset.
Yeah, and look, I think, I mean, everything you said there just makes so much sense. I think this particular piece is going to be the skills piece and the people piece. I think that's going to be the big topic or story of the next 5 to 10 years in procurement. I mean, I do think AI is important and all of that has value. But to me, this piece of the people puzzle and the skills gap that we've got today and how we help take our people to that next level, I think that's the prime driver. I think that's probably going to be the most interesting thing going forward. So, look, Ruji, this has been fantastic. I think you've covered a lot of ground around transformation, around technology. We've talked about people. Let's wrap up with kind of one final question, and that is, what would be your top piece of advice that you would give to procurement professionals who are looking to future-proof their function and impact the organizations that they work with in this ever-changing business environment? What would you tell them in terms of what they need to do to future-proof the business and really serve their organization best?
Oh, wow. One piece. there's a lot there. I think open your mind up to something different is what I would say, and that comes from the team that you're building or you're a part of, and also the capabilities that you're developing. And when I say capabilities, I mean all of your assets, your people assets, your technology, your supplier, all of them. So I think it's essential that we think differently, because the industry, the function, everything is really shifting. And for us to future-proof ourselves, we need to be able to to use the word agile. So yeah, it's a combination of prioritize continuous learning and embrace technology proactively. I think those two things I would really leave everybody with.
Yeah, fantastic. Open your mind, think different, embrace technology, be open to the change that's ahead of us and embrace
Correct.
it, right, going forward. Well, Ruji,
Correct.
this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you taking time, particularly on this inaugural video that we're doing for Procurement Evolved. And we look forward to hearing more about the journey with GE Healthcare as we go forward. Thanks so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.